Hi, I'm Sony, and I'm here to teach you some tips for filterings and sorts on the project dashboard. Because once you learn these tools, you'll see how powerful they are to help you find things on your project dashboard. All right, I'm going to be pulling up my test site here. So you'll notice that the data is a little wonky or unrealistic if you want, and that's because this is just my test site and it's not your site. But okay, I'm here in an RFQ doc list on my project dashboard. And the first thing I want to point out to you is this little icon over here that has a number 5 on it. By default, when you first go into your project dashboard and you pick one of the doc types or processes, on here, it's going to show you only the open documents. Anything that has a closed status, such as canceled, closed, approved, awarded, things like that, are not going to show up because oftentimes there are many, many documents that have been closed and you really don't need to be seeing them on your list, on your project. So be mindful of this. We're going to get back to this and the significance of this. I just want to point it out to begin with. The other thing I want to point out is this information on here that tells you the total items, that it's showing you 18 documents out of a possible 23 documents. There are a total of 23 documents, total of 23 RFQs on this project. So there's a lot, and some of you, of course, are going to have many, many more documents than 23. And so using filters is going to be the way that you can go and find what you're looking for or organize what you're looking for. Okay. Now, there's different ways to use these filters. So let's start with one of them, the status. The status is a common column on which to filter. So anytime you want to filter, you go click on the little filter icon. You'll notice that they are there for each of the columns. So you're going to click on that. So one way you can use the filter is this bottom section right here. On here, it says unselect all, because to begin with, all your possible choices are listed on here. And this is a scroll bar if there's too many. And you'll see that they're all checked by default. Okay. So if you want to just filter by one or two of them, you would unselect, and then you can select what you want. Let's say I want, I'm going to say not awarded, big back, in process. As I click on them, you can see that the results are changing right behind it. Okay, so let's just make this a little easier to see. Bid back, and now you've got your 3 documents that have a status of bid back. That's great. Now let's go choose something else. Let's say, oh, I want to go see awarded. Now you can have both of them, but I'm going to uncheck bid back. Now notice nothing is showing up. Why is this? Because awarded is a closed status. And remember, I said by default, you don't get to see any documents with a closed status unless you go up here and click on this toggle. Now this is going to include closed documents. And since all the awarded ones are closed documents, they show up here, okay? So just keep that in mind if you're ever looking for something and you're thinking, why am I not seeing these statuses? It's because they're closed. Now, these are a toggle. Like I said, you can change that back, and let's go and do something a little different. Now, let's go over to in process, because I have quite a bit of in process. And so I want to talk about having more than one filter in play. Okay, so we've got the status. They're all in process, but in there, I want to find some with a specific description, let's say. So I'm going to go over here to my description filter. Now, this is again going to show me all possible descriptions of all my 23 documents. This is not the best way to go about looking for what I want. Instead, I'm going to use the top part. The top part here that by default says contains. This is actually a drop down. A look at what you can actually do here. You can have a filter that contains, not contains, equals, not equals, begins with, not begins with, ends with, not ends with. These are very powerful tools. So I'm going to say begins with, and I'm going to say begins with 32. Okay, so right away, this is now showing me the documents that have a description that begin with 32 that are also in process because both filters are in play. If I wanted to get rid of just this filter, I would go back in here and clear out the 32. And we'll go back and just have the in process ones. Okay. If I wanted to clear all of them, I would clear all of them this way. But before I do that, let's have a little more fun. These are the descriptions that start with 32, status of in process, but let me select all. Let me see if there's some other ones that have a different status. Oh, yes, I do. I have a bid back and a not awarded also on here. And now perhaps I'm thinking, wait, what about closed documents? Again, if you want to see closed documents, go up here where the toggle is, and then you'll see that, oh yeah, there was another one here that was awarded. So just keep that in mind when you want to see closed documents, when you want to be including those closed documents, and when you don't. Okay, so let me go clear over here. And now I am going to clear all of my filters. And we start again with all the data, all the information on here. Okay, another type of filter is the date filter. And this is also a little tricky, so I'm here to tell you how to use the date filter very more productively. So let's say I want to filter on a particular date range. And in fact, the date range I want is in 2023. And I do not want to be clicking back to get over there manually. So what you do in this situation is you click on the date. It's going to now change into this view with the months, but it's also showing me the wrong year. I'm going to click on the year, and now I'm going to be saying I want 2023. Now that I have the year, I'm going to work on the months. And since I want a range, I'm going to go first from January, and I'm going to say January 1st. Okay, it's going to put that down, but I'm not done yet. I'm going to go back into that other view. I'm going to say December, and I'm going to say December 31st. Notice how now this has changed into a range, and I'm going to say done so I can come back here and see that. And look, it has found 2 documents within that calendar year that I have. And you can see from the yellow and no other yellow here that it is my only filter. So I know that that is what is there for that date. But again, let's just check. Oh, look, there were some also that were closed. Again, you should always keep in mind whether you want to include closed documents in your searches or not. Okay, let's see what else I can teach you here. Let me go put that back over there. Let me clear my filters. So we've talked about all of that. Okay, so now let's do a combination of filtering and sorting. So we can teach you a little bit about sorting. Let's go back. Let's just make this again in process, just so that you can see that you can have a filter and then you can also sort. Now, very important thing about sorting. Many times when you have a grid, and particularly when you have this doc list, that you'll notice that this information is already being sorted. How do you know this? Well, you can go look at the very top of the columns and notice the doc number has a white little triangle here. The other ones are gray. This is letting you know that this is the column on which the whole grid is being sorted. It's often the case that the first column is the sort by default column. Okay, so right now, doc number, it's being sorted. Now, I'm just in a second, I'm going to click on company because I want to sort by company. And if you come in here and sort by company, as you will see in a second, you're going to think nothing happens. And then there's going to be a message that pops up here, and it doesn't stick around very long. So I'm going to tell you what it says. Basically, it's going to tell you what you're sorting on and that you have 2 sorts. So watch this. I'm going to click on company to sort. And it has a little number 2 on there. And I think nothing has changed. Nothing has happened. This is not sorting. And I'm like, okay. So maybe I click on the number 2 on this sort again, and all it has done now is flipped the order of it, but I'm still not seeing what I want. I want to sort by company. Okay, what's going on is that the doc numbers are unique. And because they're unique and this is your primary sort, there's only going to be one for each of the doc numbers. So you're not getting any different results here by sorting on company second. So what you want to do if you really want to sort by company in this example is you're going to do a control click. When you do control click, it clears all the sorts. Now notice that there is no white little triangle. That means it's not sorted on anything. So now the next thing that you click on will be your primary sort. I'm going to click on company. And now I see, okay, it's sorted by company, and I have two Able Electrics, and I have a couple of Margie and Sons and Trev. And so I have a few of these. So now I can go back to doc number. And when I click on that, that's going to be my secondary sort. And it has that little number now, 1 and 2. You can see that 1 and 2 over here. And so now within Able Electric, I have the sort of the doc numbers. Okay. And I could keep doing this. I could, if there was enough data. I really don't have a lot of data to be able to do like a third one. So I'm not going to do that. But that's the idea. And again, if you want to always start and say, look, I just want to click on something and be thinking first and second, primary, secondary sort, just go and do that click, that control click. You can't see that I'm doing it, but I'm pressing the control key, control click, so that anything you click on after that will be your primary sort. I'm going to end with this sorted on here because that's the way it was before. Okay. One other thing I wanted to mention is your gear, because sometimes you're looking at this and you think, well, if only I had this column of information, I would want to filter or sort on that. And I don't. And so maybe you can add it. So this gear actually shows you all the possible columns that are available for your grid here, for your list. Now, if you're not a system admin, you're not going to be able to add new columns of information necessarily if they don't have any data on them and they're just not being used on your site. But you're going to know whether this is something you can add or not by looking at this content column over here. So let me explain what these little symbols mean. This one, this check mark in a black circle, it's letting you know that these are already included in your site configuration and that there are multiple values. These are generally the ones that you are seeing already. If you see a column like this that has a 1, it means it has a single repeating value. This is your process type. If you were to show this, it would just say RFQ, RFQ, RFQ. You don't need to see that, and that's why it's not visible. Here on the first column, you can see which ones are visible and which ones aren't. If you scroll a little bit more, you'll see that there are some that indicate this double check mark, and that means that there are at least 2 documents that have some value, some data in this column. But perhaps there's only 2, and there's maybe not a lot of information. You don't know. Maybe you don't need that. So I thought, what would be a great example to show you? And actually, I had already checked this, but I'll check it again because this was not here by default. And I think this is a really good column to include if you don't have it already visible. And it's this paper clip, and it basically tells you how many files are attached to this document. So this is an example of something that you might want to add in to your own project dashboard. If you're not a system admin, you're not going to be able to save this as a site setting for all users. That's okay. You can save it for yourself. You can just put that on there. You can close out of it. And here it is. Here's the column, and it's indicating whether it has 2 attachments or 1 attachment. And that's what this column is all about. And that will stay. Even if you log out and log back in, it's going to stay there for you. So let me just clear. Again, this is how you want to clear all the filters and just kind of go back to what it is. Okay. I hope these tips are useful to you and that you will be able to use them wisely and use them well to find your information. So thank you for listening.